What is aikido?
日本の伝統とともに育ってきた武術を土台として出発した心身鍛錬の道であります。
The ultimate aim of training in aikido is to unite the mind and the body as one with nature. If the spirit of nature is within us, we can utilize that infinite power which moves at will, anywhere, anytime, and without any struggle. It is the perfect harmony of ourselves with nature. The movement of aikido is like a whirlpool originating from a single center. And within this freely revolving activity lies a beauty consistent with natural motion. For this reason, we can say that the movement of aikido is circular or spherical. Movement in the universe begins and ends with circular motion centered on the heavenly bodies. If we assume that their entire surroundings move according to that order, then we can say that the human body is a small universe and that all human motion is tied to circular movement. Therefore, the moves of aikido manifest the fundamental principles of movement within the universe. The final goal strived for through aikido is, as the founder Morihei Ueshiba Sensei indicated, to unify the mind, techniques, and body, and to become one in harmony with nature. We trainees of aikido are very fortunate that we can train together with that ideal realized in Morihei Sensei. The master wished all the people of the world to clasp hands in friendship through aikido and to attain universal peace as soon as possible. That great idea has been inherited by Doshu, Kisshomaru Ueshiba, and those who practice aikido. The best way to train in aikido is to learn by consistent daily practice. In this manner, we can realize how to call forth ki, how to exert our strength, and how to move our bodies, finally acquiring the ability to regularly exert that supreme power which man possesses. In aikido, there are no contests based upon competition. Instead, there are demonstrations to show how much we have improved in our training. The success of these demonstrations depends on how well the ki, which is said to be the spring of human life, is expressed. The movement of aikido is very soft, but yet it has a firm center. Using the ki, which streams forth from the center, you can lead an opponent as if he were one with yourself. The techniques to unbalance an opponent and cause him to follow your circular movement are rational, even from the point of view of dynamics and physiology. The practice of aikido progresses from an understanding of the most fundamental techniques to a broadening of one's repertory based upon constant practice of the basics. Ikkyo. The katamewaza of aikido are those techniques which affect the joints of the arms, wrists, elbows, and shoulders. They pin the opponent on his stomach and control him from the most effective position possible, as determined by the logic of one's relation in terms of position and distance. These techniques have a great many variations, but they are mainly represented by the techniques based on ude-osae ikkyo. Among these, the unity of ki, irimi, atemi, and body movement is intensified with particular importance being placed on the harmonious movement of the hips and knees. Tachiwaza, shomen uchi, omote, and ura. Ikkyo against a striking attack from the front. Against a grab to the forearm with both hands. And against a two-handed shoulder grab from behind. The footwork for shomen-uchi ikkyo. Let's look at this footwork in slow motion. Nikkyo. Added to ikkyo, in employing primarily the wrist, is a joint lock technique known as nikkyo. In the case of katadori, there are many ways of grabbing the shoulder depending on the spatial relationship between oneself and the attacker. If one keeps the hand which is grabbing the shoulder tightly against one's own body and maintains a flexible posture such that the hand is not freed, the opponent will not be able to defend himself. As options of kote-mawashi nikkyo, there are situations where nikkyo is employed against an opponent who is striking, against an opponent who grabs a wrist with one hand, and against an opponent who grasps both shoulders from behind. Sankyo. This technique, as was nikkyo, is added to the basic ikkyo move as a joint conditioning technique. It is called kote hineri waza sankyo. This joint conditioning technique emphasizes wrist and elbow joints and takes the form of twisting the arm from the outside in. With this technique, it is easy to control the opponent by holding his fingers, but it is preferable to grasp the hand as close to the wrist as possible and to practice centralizing the force of one's entire body in his hands. As options of kote hineri sankyo, there are situations when the opponent strikes to the side of the head, when he grabs the wrist with one hand, and when he grabs the wrist with one hand and chokes the neck with the other. Yonkyo. Tekubi osai, the wrist control of aikido, which is called yonkyo, attacks the natural weak spot of one's wrist and is divisible into omote, which is applied to the pulse area of the wrist, and ura, which is applied to the radial bone. Yonkyo, as were ikkyo, nikkyo, and sankyo, is applied after unbalancing the opponent with ikkyo. As options of tekubi osae yonkyo, there are cases where it is applied against a grab to the chest. A grab to the shoulder with one hand and a strike to the face with the other hand. And against a rear collar grab. Nagewaza. Katatedori shihou nage, omote and ura. Shihou nage is that technique which developed out of the limitless methods of distributing one's force in any direction with either foot forward. Among these are the cases of a one-handed grab to the wrist by a standing opponent, of a strike to the side of the head, and of a bear hug from behind. Irimi nage. Most aikido techniques are structured so that after surprising an opponent with atemi, one then guides him to an immobile position. To execute atemi, it is basic to enter to the opponent's blind spot with irimi. As options of irimi nage, a frontal striking attack, an attack to the side of the head, and a grabbing attack from the rear. Nage katame waza. Nage katame waza are those techniques which control an opponent by applying pressure to the joints after his having been thrown. A typical technique among these is kotengaeshi. Kotegaeshi against shomen tsuki. Nage katame waza are immobilizing techniques applying circular movements to the opponent's joints. As options of kotegaeshi, there are frontal striking attacks, grabs by both hands to the wrist, and grabs of both wrists from the rear. Applied techniques. Koshinage, when an opponent grabs both wrists. Kokyu nage, when an opponent applies a bear hug from the rear. Kokyu nage, when an opponent grasps both shoulders from the rear. Kokyu nage, when an opponent grabs both wrists. Kotengaeshi, when an opponent grabs one wrist with only one hand. Options of ikkyo. Aiki otoshi. The fundamental theory of movement remains unchanged, even when a weapon is employed. Movements with weapons. It is common sense that the practice of aikido should begin with empty-handed training. Nevertheless, based on a firm acquisition of empty-handed movements. This training can also be applied to the sword, stick, and knife, etc., so that these weapons can be used with complete freedom. In the case of being struck or stabbed at with a weapon, one must unfailingly take the hanmi posture and enter to the attacker's rear with the irimi movement and control him in a single effort. This means that one has to gain complete control of the opponent before he starts his move. One of the doka says, "When my opponent, thinking me before him, attacks with sword in hand, I am already standing to his rear." Another says, "When the opponent rushes to attack, one must step aside and kill him instantly." When facing a weapon-bearing opponent, as opposed to one who is empty-handed, it is important to remember that a particularly distant position should be taken in order to ensure freedom of movement. Against an opponent making a frontal attack with a sword, it is important that one face him in hanmi and then step to his rear with irimi. When faced with an attacker holding a knife, Kumiken are those exercises where both partners possess a sword and train towards the unification of ki, mind, and body by emphasizing both the interrelationship of their ki and the manifestation of physical principles in the sword. Demonstration with variable attacks. In the case where a seated individual is attacked by a standing opponent, it is almost certain that he will be overwhelmed by the aggressor's swiftness and his life left in the balance unless he has undergone extensive training. In order to defend against a standing attack, correct posture and kokyuryoku, originating from a low center of gravity, are necessary. When these elements are not sufficiently applied, there is a tendency to be caught off guard and defeated. It can be said that techniques exhibiting power and harmony are the pride and joy of aikido. Within the tachiwaza of aikido are contained the unique techniques of attack and defense for all conceivable situations, whether for a frontal attack with the open hand, a striking attack, or an attack where the opponents grasp each other. Aikido emphasized the word ki. When the power of ki flows forth as the life stream of aiki techniques, that power is called kokyuryoku. Regardless of how beautiful or how marvelous the techniques might appear, as long as there is no outflow of kokyuryoku, the essence of Aikido's movements is being violated. It can be said that such a movement is merely a dance or an exercise in futility. Zaho is the means of developing kokyuryoku, which begins in seiza. In addition to this, there are standing practice and wrist conditioning. When sitting, it is necessary to adhere to the floor as securely as a root to the ground, to maintain one's stability, and to lower one's ki to his abdomen. Once this has been achieved, you must unhesitatingly exert all the unified force of your body through the fingertips. For just such a situation, Aikido has designed the Hanmi Handachi techniques in order for a seated person to handle an attack by a standing opponent. The techniques of Aikido are said to be infinite. There are not only techniques for a one-to-one situation, but there are also those methods of training which enable one person to freely control an instantaneous offense by multiple attackers. As a rule of thumb, when attacked by more than one person, the founder wrote, even when surrounded by a multiplicity of attacking forces, think of them as one. Aikido has revived the essence of the Japanese martial arts, which were born and developed in the lengthy history and tradition of the nation. The eternal life of Aikido resides in the continual adaptation of an unchanging human nature to society. Morihei Sensei exhibited in himself the superior concept of unity within difference, which until now had not existed in the philosophy of Buddha. This creative faith of the founder in meeting the demands of modern society has resulted in the Aikido of today. The people who seriously train in Aikido are found not only in Japan, but their numbers are spreading throughout the world. Thus, it can surely be said that the world will feel the great social significance of an ever-expanding Aikido towards a promising future.